Welcome to Oposiciones for You, the channel where we make teacher exam prep for Oposiciones a piece of cake. My name is Enrique de Los Angeles, and just like you, I am currently a student preparing for the big exam to become a teacher. But let's be real, who wants to spend hours staring at boring books? That's why I created this mock exam video to make studying a little more fun. Because let's face it, practice makes perfect, but it doesn't have to be dull. So grab a snack and let's get cracking. All right, let's talk about the challenges of the teacher exam. Now, I'm sure you've heard that a large number of candidates fail this part of the process, and it's not hard to see why. In my opinion, it's a bit unfair that we are judged as teachers based solely on our technical knowledge. I mean, sure, a lot of people can ace an exam by memorizing information, but that doesn't necessarily make them great classroom teachers. And on the flip side, there are plenty of excellent educators who might struggle with an exam format like this. Another challenge is the fact that the exam focuses on analyzing texts and finding stylistic devices, which is all well and good, but let's be real, how often do you use that in an English as a second language lesson? And don't even get me started on the lack of clarity in terms of rubrics and marking schemes. It's like they want us to fail. Lastly, let's not forget about translations. Talk about a tricky business. You never know the preference of the person reading it, so you're left guessing and hoping for the best. But don't worry, I'm here to help. I'll be giving you strategies to maximize your results in an objective way. And let's be real, after that, we can only pray. So let's get started. Let's talk about how I created this mock exam. Now, I know you're probably thinking, why should I trust this guy? He's just a student like me. But let me tell you, I put a lot of time and effort into this. First things first, I included books that I really like, both for the analysis and translation sections. I cannot stress enough how important it is to have a passion for reading different kinds of books and having a broad subject knowledge. It's key for this exam. Secondly, I looked for a lot of previous exams and did them as a student. It helped me get a better understanding of the types of questions and the format of the exam. And finally, I tried to imitate the format and type of questions in the exam I created. If I can understand how all of the questions for the exam work and I can hence create my own ones, then that will help me increase my chances of getting a higher grade. Now, I should mention that there are different types of exams depending on the Comunidad Autónoma. And in my case, I base mine around the Madrid type. But just keep in mind that my exam and my answers are limited as I am preparing myself to do the exam. Feedback is encouraged and I am here to learn, but do expect some mistakes in my video. So let's give it a go and see how it goes. All right, so let's go over with the structure of the exam. As you probably know, it's divided into 3 parts: listening, text analysis with questions about the text, and 2 translations. Now, I haven't prepared a listening section for this video or my mock exam, but from what I've seen in previous exams, it usually includes fill in the gap activities based on what you hear and comprehension questions based on the content of the listening. I know this can be a tough part for many people, but one thing that I've been doing is listening to podcasts on Spotify with different regional varieties of English and setting the speed to 1.8 to make it more challenging for me. So this here is the structure of the exam. In the next part of the video, we will start with the first part, which is the text analysis. Hopefully you will find here below a link to download the PDF with the exam I have prepared in the description of the video. I would advise you at this moment to pause the video in order to read the text and have a look at the different questions. I would recommend you to have a go and try to do the exam yourself before you continue watching the video, where the answers will be revealed. We'll be diving into the first two questions of the exam, text analysis section. These questions tend to focus on the type of text and its genre, the communicative functions of the text, and the style of the excerpt. It's crucial to structure your answer in an organized way and then write a paragraph with your answer. Avoid using bullet points or very short answers. There are four main types of text: argumentative, expository, descriptive, and narrative. Argumentative texts present a point of view and try to persuade the reader to agree with it. Expository texts explain or inform about a certain topic. Descriptive texts give a detailed account of a person, place, or thing. Narrative texts tell a story. Keep in mind that a text can belong to more than one of these types. The key here is justifying your answers and giving good reasons. Moving on to Jacobson's communicative functions, we have referential function, which corresponds to the factor of context and describe a situation, object or mental state. Expressive functions deal with the emotions and feeling of the speaker. Poetic functions deal with the message itself as it focuses on the message for its own sake. Phatic functions deal with language for the sake of interaction. Conative functions deal with are normally used with vocatives, indicate engagement with the addressee. And metalinguistic functions deal with the use of language to describe itself, so to describe the language. I have created a silly mnemonic technique. Since I want to remember this when I get to the exam, and the nerves are not an excuse, using a good technique to secure this knowledge in my brain is the best I can do. So here it is. Hey you, I love the beautiful context of words. Understand? And that would be hey you, conative, I love, expressive, the beautiful, poetic, context, referential, of words, metalinguistic, understand, phatic. Now let's try to remember the first letter of each word. CEPRMP. Can everybody please respect my people? I would love to see lots of people doing this at the same time when they have the exam in front of them. Silly but effective. In terms of style, we need to describe the text according to its register: formal, casual, intimate, its point of view, narrator, sentence complexity, tone, and mood, and rhythm and pace. Finally, if you know anything about the author and their context, you can also include that here if there are no follow-up questions later on. And here we have the question. Briefly classify the text according to its typology, genre, style, and its communicative functions. This text can be classified as a narrative text, as it tells a story and describes the interactions and relationships between characters. It is also descriptive in nature, as it provides detailed descriptions of characters, settings, and emotions. The genre of this text can be considered as literary fiction, as it focuses on character development and explores themes of relationships, self-discovery, and mental health. The main communicative functions of the text are the referential and expressive. The referential function is used to convey information about the characters, their actions, and emotions. The expressive function is used to convey the author's attitude and feelings towards the characters and the events described in the story. The narrator is a first-person narrator, which allows for an intimate look into the protagonist's thoughts and feelings. The sentence complexity is moderate, with some longer and more complex sentences, as well as shorter, simpler sentences. The tone and mood of the text is mainly melancholic and reflective, with a hint of irony and sarcasm. The rhythm and pace are slow, which reflect the protagonist's apathetic and detached state of mind. The author, Otessa Mosfeg, is known for her darkly comedic and often disturbing fiction, which explores themes of isolation, obsession, and self-destructive behavior. Critics praise her for her sharp and sentimental and often disturbing prose. Moving on to questions up to number 5. Question 2. Explain the protagonist's use of sleeping medication and its significance in the passage. A possible answer would be: the protagonist uses sleeping medication to help her sleep. The significance of this is that it shows that she is struggling with something and that she may be trying to escape from reality. Question 3. Why does the protagonist mention Riva's mother is dying of cancer? Possible answer. The protagonist mentions Riva's mother is dying of cancer to explain why she may be feeling guilty for not wanting to see her despite what she is going through. Question 4. What does the protagonist mean by my hibernation was self-preservational? I thought that it was going to save my life. Possible answer. The protagonist means that her hibernation is a form of self-preservation, that is, she is trying to take care of herself and avoid dealing with difficult situations or people. She believes that this will save her life. Question 5. Why does the protagonist mention Riva's gum chewing habit and how does it relate to her character? Possible answer. The protagonist mentions Riva's gum chewing habit to show a small detail of Riva's character, as it shows her being careless and not paying attention to her health. Also, the sound of chewing could be annoying for the protagonist. Here we have questions 6 to 9. Feel free to stop the video and do some stretches or drink some water, for we still have a while. Question 6. Analyze the use of ellipses in the line, "You are a cold fish, that's why," Riva explained. Possible answer. The use of ellipses suggests that Riva has more to say on the matter, but the protagonist is not interested in hearing it, or that the author wants to leave the conclusion of the explanation to the readers. Question 7. What is the author implying with the line, "I loved Riva, but I didn't like her anymore"? Possible answer. The author implies that the protagonist has a complicated relationship with Riva and that she has feelings of love and dislike towards her. Question 8. Identify and analyze the use of a figure of speech in the line, "Not that I was doing what I was doing was suicide. In fact, it was the opposite of suicide." Possible answer. The figure of speech used is a litotes, a figure of speech and a form of rhetorical irony in which an affirmative is expressed by negating its opposite. Question 9. Discuss the register of the text, specifically in regards to the protagonist's tone towards Riva. Possible answer. The register of the text is informal. The protagonist speaks in a conversational tone towards Riva and uses colloquial language. The tone towards Riva is ambivalent. The protagonist has a love-hate relationship with her. She is both fond of her and resentful of her. For question 10, we have to find synonyms for these words within the text. Self-protective is self-preservational. Bitterness, resentment. Smelled, reeked. Joyful, cheerful. Condescending, patronizing. Question 11. Substitute the underlined words with an appropriate word or phrase. I will just read the answers I have. Riva was secretly seeing her boss Ken, a middle-aged man with a wife and child. B. She was constantly reminding me of her moral high ground. C. I knew she was financially struggling. Question 12. For each of the sentences below, write a new sentence as similar as possible in meaning to the original sentence, but using the words given in capital letters. This word must not be altered in any way. I will just read the answers again. Despite loving her, I no longer liked her. B. Riva admitted to having an obsession with Ken. C. The purpose of my hibernation was to save my life. D. Riva had the habit of coming to my apartment and inviting and staying for hours. Question 13. Explain the meaning of the following words or expressions in capital letters in the context of the extract. Squandering, in the context of the extract, squandering refers to the act of wasting or misusing something valuable, in this case, the speaker's bikini body. Face the music. To face the music means to accept the consequences of one's actions or accept reality. In the context of the extract, it is used by Riva to encourage the speaker to take responsibility for her own actions. Gym rat. A gym rat refers to someone who spends a lot of time at the gym and is very dedicated to working out and staying in shape. In the context of the extract, Riva is described as a gym rat. A knockoff is a copy of a product that is produced and sold to the public at a lower price. In the context of the extract, it refers to the designer handbags that Riva buys in Chinatown. In the context of the extract, uncouth means something that is not socially acceptable or not in good taste. Riva cannot admit to anything that is remotely uncouth, meaning that she cannot admit to any desire that is not socially acceptable. With question 14, we'll be discussing phonetic transcription. Now, if you're not familiar with this concept, don't worry, it's not as complicated as it sounds. Phonetic transcription is the representation of speech sounds using symbols from the International Phonetic Alphabet, IPA. The IPA is a system of symbols that can be used to represent the sounds of any language. It's commonly used in linguistics, speech therapy, and language teaching. Now, it's important to note that there are different varieties of English, such as American English, Australian English, and so on. But for the purpose of this video, I will be trying to limit my answers to standard BBC English. This is the variety of English most commonly used in formal and semi-formal contexts and considered as the standard in the United Kingdom. So when you're presented with a question that asks you to transcribe a word or a sentence using the IPA, you'll have to use the appropriate symbols to represent the sounds you hear. This can be a bit tricky at first, but with practice you'll get the hang of it. And remember, the more you practice, the better you'll be at it. Here is the list of words. Pay attention because the answer will show now on your screen. Here we have A, word B, word C, this is D. And now, drum roll, we'll be tackling question 15, which is all about syntactic analysis. Now, I know that if you're Spanish, you may have done a lot of this in school, but probably not in English. This is, as we say in Spanish, the mother of the lamb, la madre del cordero. But don't worry, I'll do my best to try and explain it in a way that it's easy to understand. Now, I wouldn't recommend going crazy preparing for this type of question, as it's not 100% certain that it will appear on your exam, and it is not worth it. Same thing happens with the phonetic transcription. However, it's always best to be ready just in case. Syntactic analysis is the process of breaking down a sentence into its component parts and analyzing the function of each part. It can be a bit of a mouthful, but it's not as complicated as it sounds. When you're presented with a question like this, you'll need to write a short paragraph stating which kind of sentence it is: simple, compound, complex, or compound-complex. I would also add a comment on how the different parts are linked and any other comments you want to find worth mentioning in the text. Please go and look for more information on how to do a syntactic analysis using a tree representation. I know how to do it on paper with a pen, but not here with my computer, so I have tried my best to show you. Here we have the sentence: they take it for granted that I am always going to be cheerful. The sentence is composed of a main clause, they take it for granted, and a dependent clause, that I am always going to be cheerful. In the main clause, the subject is they, the verb is take, and the object is it. In the dependent clause, the subject is I, although it includes a contraction with the conjugated verb. The verb continues with going to be, and the direct object is cheerful. This next sentence is a compound complex sentence. It consists of two independent clauses: as a friend, Riva was indeed corny and affectionate and needy, and she was also very secretive and occasionally very patronizing, connected by a conjunction but. The first independent clause is a subject verb predicate adjective clause, where river is the subject, was is the verb, and indeed corny and affectionate and needy are the predicative adjective. The second independent clause is also a subject verb predicate adjective clause, where she is the subject, was is the verb, and very descriptive and occasionally very patronizing are the predicate adjective. Both clauses are linked together by the conjunction but, which indicates contrast. We'll be diving into the translation section of the exam. Yes, I know that this can be a tricky part of the exam, but don't worry, we've got this. I have chosen these texts because they are two books that I have recently read and I absolutely love them. The first text is Americana by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, and it's a novel that explores the experiences of a young Nigerian woman who moves to the United States for college and later to the United Kingdom for graduate school. It's a powerful story about race, identity, and the immigrant experience. It's also an important reminder of the need to deal with diversity and inclusion in our curriculum. The second text is Las Malas by Camila Sosa. It's a novel that tells the story of a trans woman who moves from her small town to the big city. It's a powerful and moving story about identity, acceptance, and the importance of trans rights. This is an important topic and one that can save lives. When it comes to translations, it's important to know the difference between direct and inverse translations. A direct translation is when you translate a text from one language to another that is your own language. For example, translating from English into Spanish if you're a native speaker. An inverse translation is the opposite, is when you translate a text from one language to another one in the opposite direction of what we said. In terms of general advice, it's important to remember that when you're translating in an exam condition, you have a time limit and you don't have access to dictionaries or other resources. So practice and be prepared as much as possible, but also don't get bogged down on one word if you cannot find the right translation. Try to continue with the text and come back to it later. I have opted to include a document called Answers where you can see the translations on a PDF. For the first text, I used the published translation in Spanish of Americana. For the second one, I am just offering you my own translation. All right, so we've reached the end of this long video, and I cannot believe you've stuck with me this long. If you're still here, congratulations. You're either a masochist or you're really committed to acing these oposiciones. But with this, at least you're showing that you care. Anyways, I hope this video has been helpful for you. If you disagree with anything I've said or have any advice for me, please leave a comment down below. I'm always happy to learn and improve. I know I am not the best YouTuber, but hopefully I'm good enough to give you a good laugh and some advice. And don't forget, if you enjoyed this video, hit that subscribe button and stay tuned for more of my ramblings. And as for me, I'm going to go and take a long siesta because this video was longer than the exam itself. Thank you so much for watching and good luck on those oposiciones.